There are moments in life when a person suddenly becomes aware of a truth they have been avoiding for years, a truth that quietly follows them like a shadow, a truth they pretend not to see but that controls their choices, fears, and reactions. This truth is simple: human beings are not perfect. Every person carries weaknesses, insecurities, fears, emotional wounds, doubts, and inner limitations that shape their behavior in silent ways. Yet most people spend their entire lives trying to hide their weaknesses instead of understanding them. Accepting your weaknesses is not an act of defeat, it is an act of liberation, a form of personal honesty so rare that those who achieve it begin a completely new level of life. When you start to accept your weaknesses, the first wall you break is the wall of denial. Denial is a comfortable prison, a place where you convince yourself that everything is fine even when it isn't. People pretend to be confident when they are terrified inside. They pretend to be strong when they are exhausted. They pretend to be stable when their life is falling apart behind closed doors. Denial feels safe because it protects your ego, but it also traps you in the same patterns forever. Accepting weakness breaks this illusion and forces you to meet yourself without masks. And meeting yourself without masks is the beginning of true growth. When a person admits their weakness, something powerful happens inside them. A weight begins to lift, the mind becomes clearer, and the heart stops fighting itself. People think accepting weakness makes them small, but in reality, it makes them stronger than ever before. A person who hides their weakness is always living in fear, fear of being discovered, fear of being judged, fear of losing respect. But a person who accepts their weakness has nothing to fear anymore because they are no longer hiding anything. They walk with honesty, clarity, and inner freedom. Weakness loses its power the moment you say, "Yes, this is who I am right now, and I am willing to work on it." That single sentence can change a life. Many weaknesses are not even weaknesses at their core, they are wounds. A person who is afraid of taking decisions may have once been punished harshly for making a mistake. A person who fears rejection may have been abandoned in the past. A person who avoids conflict may have grown up in an environment where speaking up led to pain. A person who lacks confidence may have been told repeatedly that they were not good enough. Weaknesses are not evidence of failure, they are evidence of experiences. When you understand where they come from, you stop blaming yourself. You stop judging yourself harshly. You begin to see weakness as a story instead of a flaw. And when you understand the story, you can finally begin to rewrite it. Accepting your weaknesses also teaches you humility. Humility is not about lowering yourself, it is about seeing yourself clearly. When a person knows their strengths but also acknowledges their weaknesses, they become balanced. They stop competing with others. They stop comparing. They stop pretending. They stop running after validation. They live with a quiet confidence that does not need to be showcased. They grow from a place of truth instead of ego. Weakness becomes a teacher rather than an enemy. One of the most powerful transformations that happens when you accept your weaknesses is emotional clarity. Many people live with constant anxiety because they do not understand what is causing it. Many live with anger because they do not recognize the vulnerability behind it. Many live with self-doubt because they have never confronted the voice inside them that says they are not enough. But when you sit with your weaknesses and examine them without fear, emotions begin to untangle. You start to see which emotions are protecting you, which ones are harming you, and which ones are simply old habits of survival. You realize that anger is sometimes just fear wearing armor. You realize insecurity is just a forgotten part of you asking for attention. You realize that the weakness you hate the most may actually be the doorway to your greatest strength. Accepting your weaknesses also improves relationships. People often think that showing weakness will make others lose respect for them. But in reality, showing vulnerability creates connection. When someone shares their fears, insecurities, and struggles, it opens a space for authenticity. People feel understood, inspired, and closer. No one connects with perfection, people connect with realness. Relationships break not because of lack of love but because of lack of honesty. When you accept your weaknesses, you no longer hide important parts of yourself from those who care about you. You communicate better. You open up. You allow others to support you. And you support them in return because you understand what it means to struggle. Weakness becomes a bridge rather than a barrier. Accepting your weaknesses also impacts personal growth. Most people try to improve only the areas they already feel comfortable with. They practice what they are already good at. They avoid areas where they feel inadequate. But true growth begins when you walk toward the parts of yourself that scare you. When you say, "This is my weak area, and I am going to work on it," you begin the journey of transformation. Improvement requires awareness. Awareness requires honesty. Honesty requires courage. Accepting weakness is the most courageous form of self-awareness because it forces you to confront the parts of yourself that you have ignored for years. When you embrace your weaknesses, you create a clear map of your inner world. You begin to understand what needs healing, what needs practice, what needs patience, and what needs acceptance. Some weaknesses can be fixed. Some can be managed. Some simply need understanding. But you can never change what you refuse to acknowledge. One of the biggest secrets of life is that weakness and strength are not opposites. They are connected. Your greatest strength often grows from the soil of your deepest weakness. A person who once lacked confidence can become a powerful leader because they know how hard confidence is to build. A person who once feared failure can become unstoppable because they no longer fear falling. A person who once felt unworthy can become deeply compassionate because they know the pain of self-doubt. Weakness is not the end of your story, it is the beginning of your transformation. Every strength was once a weakness that someone chose not to run from. Accepting your weaknesses also teaches resilience. Resilience is not about being unbreakable, it is about being honest about what breaks you and still choosing to rise. People who deny their weaknesses break easily because they never prepared for reality. People who accept their weaknesses learn how to bend without breaking. They learn how to adapt, adjust, and evolve. They learn how to fall without losing hope and how to rise without losing humility. Accepting weakness builds inner endurance, the kind of endurance that helps you face challenges head-on instead of avoiding them. Accepting your weaknesses also frees you from judgment. When you accept your own flaws, the judgment of others becomes powerless. You stop caring about what people think because you already know your truth. You stop fearing exposure because you have nothing to hide. You stop seeking validation because you no longer depend on others to define your worth. A person who accepts their weaknesses becomes emotionally independent. Criticism no longer destroys them. Opinions no longer control them. They grow beyond the need to impress. They live with an inner confidence rooted in self-awareness rather than external applause. Most importantly, accepting your weaknesses creates inner peace. Peace does not come from perfection, it comes from acceptance. When you stop fighting yourself, your heart becomes lighter. When you stop pretending, your mind becomes calmer. When you stop hiding, your soul becomes free. Peace is not found outside, it is found by making peace with who you are. And you cannot make peace with yourself until you accept the parts of you that you dislike the most. Acceptance is not the same as giving up. Acceptance is understanding the truth of what is, so you can begin the journey toward what can be. When you accept your weaknesses, life becomes simpler. Your decisions become clearer. Your goals become meaningful. Your relationships become deeper. Your self-respect becomes stronger. And your future becomes brighter. The greatest power a person can have is self-awareness. The greatest courage a person can show is vulnerability. And the greatest transformation a person can experience begins with one simple step: accepting their weaknesses without fear, without shame, and without judgment. In a world where everyone is trying to appear perfect, choosing to accept your flaws makes you extraordinary. It makes you real. It makes you human. It makes you strong in ways that perfection never could. Your weaknesses are not the end of your story. They are the chapters that lead you to growth, strength, wisdom, and inner freedom. And the moment you stop running from them is the moment your real life finally begins.